On this day, March 5th, 2025, I got up early to take on the South Rim. A lot of the conditions at the national park were unusual. In addition to the weather, there were the situations that happened to do with the park ranger layoffs, and of course the increased visitation by people. On this day, it would also be almost a full 2 months since I'd last had the chance to have a conversation with my mother. Welcome back to my channel, everybody. Today we're taking on the South Rim Trail via Laguna Meadow, and we'll be returning via Pinnacles if everything goes well. So far, we're only seeing evidence of human footprints right now in the form of shoes. No animal tracks yet. Normally in the past, I would find tons of evidence of wildlife on the trails. Now I was finding more and more evidence of just people. So I'm about 3.5 miles in to this hike. Listen to how quiet it is. I can hear a few birds. Normally walking up this route at this time during this season. Today's Ash Wednesday, by the way. So for those of you who didn't know anything about Lent, look it up. Consider going without at some point to reduce the impact that we're all making to the environment. Might be the only way to collectively change anything. In the meantime, last Easter, I had two close people who really got into it with me about talking about this subject. It seems to me they were angry. Maybe they had some resent. I'm not really sure. But for me, walking up here, hearing it as quiet as it is, seeing no animal tracks. Check out the tracks if you can see them. Not seeing hardly any animal scat, definitely no bear scat, no tracks in any of this soft powder except for shoe prints. And seeing the birds practically begging for snacks along the way made this extra challenging. It's going to get up to about 75 today. I don't know what it'll make it up to here in this upper elevation, but we're just about to make it into the sunlight where I can start getting a little bit more comfortable. The sweat will start to dry off. Instead of walking in a semi-wet shirt and toweling myself off with a semi-wet handkerchief, now I'll be able to leisurely take advantage of not feeling too terribly uncomfortable, except for knowing that there should be a lot more wildlife that we would have spotted by now.
The beautiful, serene, restorative scenery of the Big Bend National Park was all around me. And so were quite a few bits of one-time use products that constantly reminded me of growing up in this country.
In case anyone's wondering where the first bathroom is when you come up the Laguna Meadow Trail, it's about 3.8 miles in. You need to make sure you came prepared with TP if you need to use the bathroom like that.
For this hike, we're headed somewhere up there. I made sure to hydrate and also to not lose my top.
It's currently peregrine falcon nesting season here in Big Bend. Part of the upper Chisos trail systems are closed because of that. A few years ago, I got to walk with the Sierra Club by invite, and the group I was with, I advised them that there were a lot less peregrines than there had been in the past. Someone in the group argued that wasn't true and stated emphatically that there were more peregrines now because of the nesting season, because of the closing of the trail systems, and they were older, and I was with an older group, as is mostly the case if you're running with the Sierra Club and their outings. There's a lot of wealth in there, and in that wealth is a lot of entitlement, and in the entitlement comes a lot of ignorance. And there used to be a time when you could come up here to South Rim and see peregrines sailing on the wind currents over my shoulder here. Normally you would see vultures, ravens, and hawks, and even golden eagles. But a lot of those things are not present anymore because all the things they eat are not present. So I implore you, if you're a master naturalist or if you're a member of the Sierra Club, to check out the video that I'll end up linking to in this video, where I talk about that circumstance and where comments are allowed. Right now for this year's posts, I'm not I'm not permitting comments for right now. But if a year has gone by and this video is still up, maybe you'll have the opportunity to comment if these online platforms are still even a thing by then. But for now, I'd like to challenge you to look on the horizon sometimes. Stand still, listen for the bugs, and you'll find that almost every sort of wildlife has been on the decline to the point where you cannot help but notice if you actually decide to pay attention.
If you look closely, you'll see the first butterfly I spotted while walking up this amazing trail. I'd been walking for almost 5 miles by this point. Off in the distance from this point in my hike, I was able to see the Santa Elena Canyon, a mighty landmark in this amazing national park system. Mulear's peaks were also visible in this video clip. However, one of the things that was absent was the visibility of a single rock squirrel on this entire trip. Although there are many amazing mountain view vistas from the South Rim area of Big Bend National Park, we still hadn't made it to our destination after several miles of hiking and still climbing uphill.
We're about 6 miles into this hike from the Laguna Meadow side, and we're still going uphill. I've got to make it up there somewhere.
After making it over the hill, I got to take a beautiful break and see some beautiful scenery while listening to a beautiful bird. Several years ago, it was almost guaranteed that you would see deer feeding in these meadows, or even a black bear. The recent extreme winters and summers and fires have definitely transformed these landscapes. I showcase a lot of different things on my channel, but one of the more popular things that I showcased in the past was my smart device segments. And so I wanted to show you a view from the smart device, but also from the areas that I use those smart devices in. Do you think the device is more amazing to look at, or this type of scenery? Let me know by clicking on the thumbs up if you like seeing this type of scenery, even though it is a little bit hazy. Or click on the thumbs down if you would have rather seen a lot more about the electronic device itself. And also, if you're only here to see me in some format, don't forget to click on the thumbs up or the thumbs down.
So as I mentioned, part of the trail system is closed right now for the nesting peregrine falcons. Can you tell me what you don't see in the sky right now? It's about noon. Normally on a day like this, in a place like this, you would have hawks, ravens, some kind of falcons, peregrine included. But there are all kinds of things up here that are absent. And they're absent because the food is absent. The things that they would eat are not really as
Abundant is the word that I was searching for.
common for whatever reason right now. You can chalk it up to climate challenges, weather anomalies, whether or not you understand what I'm talking about. The fact is that life here in Big Bend National Park is much different than it was, let's say, if you were here 5 to 8 years ago. Over the past 4 years, things have declined so rapidly that I'm able to cross entire areas of desert because even the vegetation is being challenged in ways that maybe we're not understanding.
An eruption of bees or flies brought together a large number of these birds so that they could fill themselves on this currently plentiful food. I also saw a few more deer than I had seen in the past couple of years on these trail systems. In each case where I saw the deer, I noticed they were hanging out near the water sources that formerly would have an abundant amount of water. In the absence of the water, there was a flood of these interesting flies. As the temperatures warmed up, I saw more and more flies feeding these hungry birds. None of these flies interacted with me, but the next day, while I was recuperating at the hot springs, someone else who was on the trail the day before told me that these flies had swarmed them and anyone else who was walking on these trails on that day. I might have been lucky, but I also might have probed further to find out if they had applied any kind of sunscreens or lotions or even insect repellents, all of which I do not use any longer, although I might have in the past. In the current, the damaging effects of the additional one-time use plastic bottles has really turned me away from those products. By this point in my walk, I had only about 4 miles to go, plus the additional portion after the trail reroute, and I had found myself at the Boot Spring area, and that's what you see these deer descending into right now. I rarely use the maps feature on this amazing smart device, but I thought I would show it to you anyway a few times during this video because it is pretty impressive. Some time back I had mentioned the maps and track back features to my stepfather. He didn't seem interested, and mostly it seemed like he wasn't interested because it was something I was recommending. My mother had tried to prompt him to check out this device and the technology I had been speaking of, and in the long run, he opted to not even consider any of this, and they later got lost on a basic trail system in Hawaii and had to use the SOS function on their smart device to get help. I often talk about safety first on this channel, and I try to relay that information. I tried in the past to relay that information to my mother because in some segments, it seems like retired parents are traveling with their older children who can help them navigate some of these journeys. But for some reason in my family, I was summarily excluded from being able to navigate many of these journeys with not just my own parents, but also my friends. I've mentioned in the past that I don't really know if I have as many friends and family as I did in the past, but I've also been able to enjoy these places of solitude the way they were intended to be enjoyed, in a more respectful, quiet way. Here you can see we're approaching the Boot Rock, after which the Boot Canyon was named. Even though we're so close to the trailheads, as you can see by this stone cottage and the view here, because of recent changes to the trail system, the end of the trail is actually still quite a distance from up where you used to be able to exit the trail system. So be sure to pack some extra water or an extra snack to get it through those last few quarter miles that might sum up to a full mile or more in difference from what the trail system was in the past. Now we get to the point of contention with our different generations. Is there a safe way to discuss the increasing problem of the one-time use that is scattered throughout these ecosystems? I don't know if there is a safe way, because whenever it comes down to it, in the past, I was able to talk with people about this and maintain relationships. But in the current, as I'd mentioned earlier on, it's already been a couple of months since I've been able to speak with my own mother in person about this. Mother Nature has not been kind, and Father Time has not been that forgiving if you look at the age lines. And by age lines, I mean look at all of the places of entertainment that we might go to, including a place like this national park system. And look at all the things that are being left behind, both from the current and the past. And then look around and see who's holding some of the things that are directly related to this type of rubbish. And see if you're not holding the same items in your own hands. The thing about this global problem, the challenges to the climate, is that we are all holding the key to either exacerbating or alleviating these types of problems. What do you see here? Have you held something like that before? How about over here? Have you used anything like this before? I know many of us have used something like this, the one-time use paper that you see in some places here, like right here. We've all heard it said more than once that acknowledging the problem is the first step to alleviating the problem, if there is in fact a problem. Being able to discuss whether or not there's a problem takes a multitude of people who are able to maintain control while they're having a discussion, normally without using emotions. For the overly emotional, a video like this and the people who would make something like this are pure trash to them, and they would just be discarded by the emotional viewer. For the compassionate viewer, you're recognizing that you might have held some of these things in your own hands at some point in time. And it doesn't escape us that we are all contributors to the overall effect of sharing the privilege of using some of these resources, but neglecting as a whole, as humanity, the ability to maintain control. And when we're out of control and we do things without gratitude or even thinking about it, that could be seen as addiction. In my mind, many of our people, including people in my own family, including myself at times, have gone through stages of addiction where we can't figure out how to let go of the routine. We can't figure out how to let go of the past. We can't seem to escape our ghosts. We can't seem to escape our ghosting. I've reached out to several entities, and throughout time, it seems like the people who I most were able to rely on in the past have suddenly elected to abandon me, voting instead to go on their own way without ever acknowledging that there was any kind of a problem to begin with. That seems to open me up to have quite a bit of free time to operate independently and to continue to see that the way that our elders taught us is not the way that we should be moving forward. But what if, by the time we learn these things, our existing elders have suddenly become so unwilling to hear this type of information that they would go so far as to ghost their own children? As I stated earlier, it's been over 2 months since I've spoken with my mom. We had a few text correspondences between then and now, but for whatever reason, some people who happen to be unable to process these basic concepts get so agitated that anytime we talk about these subjects, they take any of the insight as a personal attack. With an increasing frequency, more and more often, when people feel threatened in any way, because of how fearful we are, more than not, people will simply ghost one another over something that might not even be as challenging as one would think. And once someone has ghosted someone else, they're in essence denying the other person's existence altogether, let alone their participation in the vote. Until next time, peace, love, and all that old school stuff.
I roam the desert at night. You'll rarely see me in the light. And don't you be so surprised if you don't see me at all. But you're not the last soul who I'll see tonight. And do you hear me anyway? Or are you still focused on the day? Sometimes your nightmares come to play. Sometimes it's easy to overlook the storm shadow closing in on you tonight. They run and hide, what's the point? When did death ever disappoint? It's like a hammer to the joint. If you don't spark it at all, maybe your first blow will not be your last. I roam the desert at night. You'll rarely see me in the light. And don't you be so surprised if you don't see me